Jericho here. Welcome to We the People, a new birth of freedom. Thank you for stopping by. I have a few questions. Considering the statistics that we have so far, over 5 million people have alleged contacted COVID-19. Over 163,000 plus have died with COVID-19. My first question is, how accurate are those numbers? How accurate are those statistics? Well, I would have to say, based on my personal experience and knowledge of individuals that I speak to, those statistics are not accurate. And that's just in my little world that I revolve in. The reason they're not accurate is because I know individuals personally who have received notices from their doctor stating that they tested positive for COVID-19 and they haven't been to the doctor since last year. You tell me how that happens. I also know other individuals who have went to the doctor to be tested, waited and waited and waited in line, and because the lines were so long and the wait was so long, they decided to leave, only within a week later received a notification that their test came back positive when they were not tested at all. Our own Governor DeWine here in Ohio first tested positive for COVID-19, then tested negative. Those are just some examples that I'm familiar with. So my question is, if that's the case in my little world here, what is the case nationwide? How accurate are these tests? Or how many people's been tested and found positive that weren't tested at all? Once again, understand me, I'm not saying that there's not some mutated strain of flu out there or SARS. I'm not saying that people haven't gotten sick. They get sick every year. The flu hits people every year. Which leads to my next question. If the statistics of COVID-19 are not accurate, then my next question is, of those 163,000 plus deaths here in the United States, supposedly of COVID-19, how many have died as a result of not wearing a mask? Now that seems like a reasonable, intelligent, logical question. So, where do we go with that? Are we to assume that all 163,000 plus people that have died, according to statistics of COVID-19, they weren't wearing a mask? Are we to assume that? Well, you know what happens when we assume something, right? Nevertheless, are we to assume that over 163,000 people who have died, those people were not wearing a mask? Or over 5 million people who have contacted COVID-19, they're not wearing masks either? Which leads to the next question. If a greater percentage of people were wearing masks, why did they contact COVID-19? If they were wearing masks, why did they contact COVID-19 and die of COVID-19. Do you see where I'm going with this? I'm not trying to be facetious. I'm not trying to mock this thing. I realize people genuinely get sick. I've got sick before. Back in 2017, I was sick for 2 weeks. And when I look up the symptoms that I had and compare them to the symptoms that they say COVID-19 affects an individual, I had every symptom. Every single solitary symptom. And that was 2017. So what did I have? COVID-17? And I mean, I was sick, man. So I guess I had COVID-17. So COVID-17, I guess, is outdated. So I know what it's like to be sick. I've had the flu many times in my lifetime. Very sick. Fevers, chills, nausea, throwing up, diarrhea, shaking, weakness, can't eat, can't taste, can't breathe. But you know what was worse than that? Food poisoning. That's the sickest I've ever been in my life, is when I've contacted food poisoning about 3 times in my life. And I'm in my 60s. I have to say that food poisoning was by far worse than any flu that I've ever had in my life. I threw up and heaved and retched and dry heaved until I thought I was going to die. I got it one time off of pancakes and sausage. I got it one time off of a tuna fish sandwich. And I think I got it another time off of another kind of sandwich, it seems like. But nevertheless, these numbers that they're giving us, that they're throwing out there, how many wore mask, how many didn't wear mask, that contacted, and how many had mask on and how many didn't have mask on that they say have died. And then we've got to ask this question. How many have been diagnosed with COVID-19 that just had the regular flu, pneumonia, or some other illness, but because we're in the COVID-19 culture now, they were tagged with COVID-19 just because. It's my understanding that doctors and hospitals are getting a lot of money out of this, so is it possible that the more COVID-19 patients they tag, the more money they get? I don't know. That's probably absurd, right? Look, there are so many variables to this thing that I'm not getting answers to satisfy my questions. That's fair, isn't it? Isn't it fair to ask questions? Isn't it fair to get truthful answers instead of assumptions and speculation and exaggerations? As I say before, I say now again, you hate to think about it, but it's the reality of our lives. If you fully trust the government or the experts, you are going to find yourself on a slippery slope and cross that threshold of the point of no return as you find yourself in a dung heap of fabrications, hypocrisy, lies, misinformation, and justifications for why they said what they did at the time they said it. As I've said before, here's how government representatives justify their lies. If they're asked something and they give an answer only later to be found out that they lied, and then they're called on the carpet, their favorite answer is, well, I responded according to the information I had at the time. Okay, hey, God bless. Whatever you do, be a true American patriot. And one more thing, just tell the truth.